Looks like we're live.
All right, thanks, Braden. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the March 17th meeting of the Berrien County Community Corrections Advisory Board. I'll call this meeting to order at this time. Thanks, everybody, for making time for this today. I know everybody's busy, but I know Haley and I appreciate your ongoing support. We're going to get right to work here. The first item is the approval of our January 20 minutes. First of all, I trust that everybody has received a copy of those that Haley sent out. Anybody have any corrections or modifications that need to be made to those minutes? Hearing none, then I need a motion for the approval of those minutes.
I move. No, I second.
All right, all those in support of approving the January 2021 minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Thank you. Kevin, jail population report. What's going on over at the jail?
The total inmate count for today is 280. The total classified count is 264, and we have currently 110 on the tether program.
How's that? What's the trend with that, Kevin? I know there's, it seems like that's fairly consistent for some period of time. I don't track that every day. What can you tell me?
It is, especially for the month of March. The high for the month of March was 292, but we're pretty much staying in the 280 range so far this month.
All right. Great. Thanks, Kevin. Anybody have any questions for Kevin as it relates to jail population? Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Sure.
Robin, KPEP.
Hello, just kind of an update here. I mean, we're still business as usual for the most part. We have moved all of our outpatient group settings are all being done via Zoom. We don't have any in-person groups other than the residential clients, which we currently have 10 felony probation cases in the program. We're running about 30, so our house count is about a third of what we normally run this time of year. So we're just continuing with, social distancing and trying to ensure that our folks that are in-house are getting the best programming that they can, given the circumstances.
Thanks, Robin. Is that 10 by design? I mean, can you take more, or is that just where you guys feel comfortable at this time?
Oh, we can definitely take more. We have ample space to be able to social distance. So, I mean, obviously we're still taking referrals, but it's been a little slow moving. I think probably, just given the amount of cases the court has to see, we'll probably start seeing an increase here over the next month or two, I would think.
Okay. I think you're probably right about that. Any questions for Robin on KPEP? Okay, thanks, Robin. Don, pretrial supervision.
Okay, so for the month of January, we started out with 36 in the program. We had a pretty high significant discharge of 12, only 3 enrolled in the month of January. 95% appearance rate, concurrence rate was 68%, and then we had 77% did not get new charges. Then for the month of February, kind of reversed it. We had 11 new enrollments with 5 discharges. So currently at the end of February, we were at 33 in the program, 100% appearance rate, 64 concurrent rate, then 87% did not get new charges.
Okay. Questions for Don about any of those numbers?
I have a quick question. This is Amber Glendunning. Hey, Don,
who all is in that? Like, I guess I'm a little unclear as to who is actually in that and how they get designated for it.
Sure. So anytime someone is put in jail, we do a praxis risk assessment that is done by our pretrial officers. So we start with the higher felonies, then we work down until we run out of time for the day. So anybody who scores in the high category, which would be a risk level 5 or above, they are eligible for this program, which then gives them into a supervision level where they're meeting once a week. We're going over with them their court dates, making sure they're appearing, tracking them really good. So it's really done off of the risk level, and it's usually more felonies related folks. We do some high misdemeanors if there's time allowed to do the risk assessment daily.
Okay, and I only asked because, and I think Paul and Carrie can probably vouch for me, our appearance rate of felons for their PSIs is catastrophically worse than 95% and 100%. And I wondered if that is something that we could utilize, or maybe you can send me a list of who all's in that at any given time. So if we're having a hard time finding someone, maybe we could, you guys as a resource too. Like I said, I'm just trying to figure out how to not have as many of these people that we just can't seem to track down while they're on bond.
Sure. The biggest key with that, right, is it is the grant position. So we've got to do a praxis on them, and they got to score a 5. So anybody below that would not qualify. And a lot of those potential OWI that you're referring to, or maybe not necessarily, but with the PSIs, they may not be scoring at the 5 or above. So I don't know. We could discuss that. I'm happy to share, a list with you, and you can kind of see how that kind of looks against your PSI list. And I'm willing. I mean, we've got spots, so we're at 33. We'd like to take this up to 60. So there definitely is room for people to get into that program. So maybe, Amber, we can go offline with that discussion and maybe be able to work something out.
Okay, thank you.
Don, I had a question. So those figures of the appearance rates, those are all folks, that data takes into account these people have bonded out. You're not counting people that were unable to bond in that number, are you?
Yeah, so everybody, the numbers that are listed are those that are actually bonded out. So if you look at so for instance, the total number of eligible offenders at the very bottom, it's 72 for January and February. So that's the amount that were eligible because they scored a 5 or above. However, as you see, we only got 33 in our program. So that means the other 41, I guess, if I did my math correctly, but anyways, or 39, are still sitting in jail and never bonded out.
Thank you.
And I do have a question about the appearance rates as well. Are a lot of those, from what you can tell from the caseload, appearing in person because they are felony level cases, or are those by Zoom? And what's the success rate difference, I guess, between Zoom and in person, if you know?
Yeah, I do not have it broken down that way, so I'm not exactly sure.
Well, I think,
Okay.
Terry, this data is from January, February, so at least the pre-exams would have been remote, I assume, at that point.
Right. Yeah, I'm just curious about the kind of the difference. It seems like we've been having more success with Zoom, so I just kind of wanted to see where things were at. But if folks were certainly more comfortable coming in person, that's a different question, or were required to come in person, that's a different issue. Thanks, Don.
Sure.
Anybody else have anything for Don as it relates to pretrial supervision?
Don, this is Commissioner Ray. I'll say now, just so I can just have a more understanding of this program, could you tell me what criteria is used for the scoring?
Yeah, the scoring hits on several key factors. So one is if they have ever committed any, their criminal history, basically, we take an account of theirs. So if they have a significant criminal history, then that gives them more points. If they fail to appear in the past, that also will give them more points because they're more at risk to potentially reoffend. If they have substance abuse, drugs or alcohol dependency type issues, that will also flag them more. Employment is another risk factor that goes into it, if they're employed or not. So when you look at it, it's basically looking at trying to make a determination with past and what's happening right now. What is the likelihood that if this person would potentially not appear for court and or potentially reoffend? And that's what the risk needs is trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions for Don regarding pretrial supervision? Okay, then we turn to Haley Richards, for our manager update. Haley.
So I'm going to start off with the so far utilization in fiscal year 2021. So this is from October through February. So right now for the drug treatment court testing program, we have a 13% enrollment rate and 8% spending of our total budget utilization for that category. Our drug court case numbers are currently low. I think largely due to not accepting referrals for around 10 months. First, we didn't have a case manager in last fiscal year, and then COVID hit. And so we weren't able to get those referrals in before COVID hit. So now we have seen, we are starting to accept referrals and get some of those moved through to accept them into the program. The MDOC testing program is at 59% enrollment and 6% of spending so far this fiscal year. And we are receiving referrals, but the spending doesn't seem to match up so far with the enrollment rates. I'm not sure if that's due to just the billing hasn't caught up yet, or if that's because, you know, there's different circumstances for probationers. I know a couple have been sent to inpatient treatment, so testing is then halted after that. For the Men in Crisis program, we're at 92% enrollment and 63% of spending so far. So we actually are above targets for that program for fiscal year 2021 so far. And the enrollment percentages doesn't quite match up with the spending. But there have been a couple people who have been assessed but weren't able to be in the program because of their violence risk assessment score that Ed does. The pretrial program is at 16% utilization for programming and 31% of the budget utilization. Behavioral health assessments are at 20% of enrollment and 19% of spending. That program, again, is difficult to predict the need for assessment since it is dependent on the offense type or referrals to programs such as drug treatment court that do require an assessment. The administration budget is at 30% of the utilization, and overall we're at 20% of the utilization for the first 5 months of the fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions about fiscal year 2021 budget utilization? If not, I can move on to, so this is data that was sent to me by the MDOC Office of Community Corrections. This is the 2020 Compass Criminogenic Needs and Risk Profile. And I just took the top 4 needs in Berrien County based on those Compass scores and based on those risk assessments. So for Berrien County in 2020, which was October 2019 through September 2020, the top 4 for just felony probationers was criminal personality, substance abuse, vocational educational, and cognitive behavioral. And the top criminogenic needs scales for probation violators was history of noncompliance, criminal involvement, cognitive behavioral, and criminal personality. And MDOC OCC does look at both medium probable and high to highly probable. So that's why I included both scores there and added the totals up. And if you want to look at the overall state data, I did provide those spreadsheets that MDOC OCC provided to me. So if you want to take a look at those too, but this is just to keep in mind as we move forward, with our planning for next fiscal year and then fiscal years after that. And I can move on to the fiscal year 2022 planning if there's no questions about any of that data so far. Hopefully you all can see that okay. Okay, so basically I just created a spreadsheet to show kind of in the past. I know 2020 was kind of an interesting year, so I just added the original award amount that we received in 2020 combined with our fiscal year 20 expenditures, our fiscal year 21 budget request, as well as the amount that we were actually awarded. So last year we did receive, this fiscal year we received a significant budget cut. And then this is the proposal that I have planned that I'll explain to you, but obviously this is up to the board. Anything that anyone has to add or any suggestions, please feel free. So first off, for the administration and pretrial supervision officer budget, that's pretty much the same, just based on a 5% increase at the recommendation of the finance office. And this is based on a mid-level employee for each of those positions with full family benefits. So at any case, either of those positions could change, the person in those positions, or their benefits could change with a major life event. So that's why we account for full family benefits for those positions under a grant. And for the drug treatment court testing budget, the goal is to increase our current case numbers for the drug treatment court, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year. So I did account for a full caseload in that budget of $35,790. And like I said, in the past, the pandemic has impacted our drug court case numbers, as well as not having a caseworker in that position for a while. But we do hope to get those numbers back up. So I've accounted in 2022 for that increase. In the behavioral health assessments budget, I have allocated $6,750 at this point. Although we have only had 5 enrollments by February 2021 for this fiscal year, it's a program that is important to continue, but it's difficult to predict how many assessments will be needed because it's largely based on offense type or referrals to programs like drug treatment court. And in 2020, for reference, there were 22 total assessments performed in 2020. And in the Men in Crisis program, we've consistently utilized this program in the past. And so I think that is another program that's important to continue if the board agrees. And in fiscal year 2020, spending was down due to COVID suspensions, but the utilization has picked up back for 2021, and we're on target to surpass our expectations for that program from last fiscal year. For the MDOC enhanced testing program, our spending is down for fiscal year 2021. However, our enrollment numbers are above our target at this point in the fiscal year. So I'd recommend continuing this program with the goal to increase the projected enrollments to 30 just based on our current utilization this year. And then one program that we did have and not utilized in fiscal year 2020 was the behavioral health treatment program. We did ask and request in fiscal year 2021 for behavioral health treatment funding. However, due to our significant budget cut, the board did decide to take out that program for fiscal year 2021. I would recommend to the board to add that program back in, at least with a reduced budget, but just adding that back in, the reason being that although it wasn't utilized, I do think it's an important program for mental health court in drug treatment court and potentially pretrial participants who do need treatment, but experience lapses in their insurance or inability to pay their copays. And really it's just to help those folks get continue treatment until they can find financial means or resolve those insurance issues. It's a short-term program. And that is all I have as of now for the fiscal year 2022 budget recommendation.
All right, thanks, Haley.
Haley,
Questions for Haley?
Yeah, Haley, this is Commissioner Bell. So do you have a speculation as to why there was no usage of that behavioral health treatment budget? Did COVID play a part in that?
Potentially COVID, yes. I would also say that it's dependent on the year. That's another program that's really difficult to predict how many people you need to utilize it because it is based on need. So if, folks aren't having trouble paying their copays or needing insurance, then there's not really a need for that program. But if the case should arise, there's, in past years, and I experienced this in the specialty courts too. Some years we need $10,000 for treatment. Some years we need $1,000. So it's really just hard to predict.
All right. Well, first of all, I have a comment. Most consistently, I would like to, thank Ed Quint for the Men in Crisis program. That's consistently been the program that we have that's been most utilized. Men in Crisis has been around for a long time. It's a good program. Ed does a great job with it. And it's just, consistently been the most utilized program that we offer. That's my experience. I didn't go back. Haley's got all the numbers here, but I think, Haley, that's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah, based on what I know, yes, that's accurate.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank Ed and congratulate him for the work that he does with the Men in Crisis program. I guess, Haley, what's our, when is our budget 2022 budget proposal due? When does that happen?
Yeah, so the grant is due on May 1st. So the purpose of our April 21st meeting, I believe is the date, would be to vote on the finalized proposal. So really this meeting is just to discuss any changes that the board would want to make so that I can work on between this meeting and the next meeting, that proposal again to the board.
All right. And what we were awarded this fiscal year was $150,000 down from the $214 that was requested. Without me doing the math, can you help me with how much of that $150,000 it looks like we're going to utilize during this fiscal year?
Right now, we're at 28% of our budget spent when we should be at this point in the year at 42%. So I haven't done the math either.
Okay. So we're behind, but not, I guess for me, I would say not terribly behind, as we consistently struggle to utilize and spend all the money that we're awarded, which is part of the reason that we get less money from the state on an annual basis, because we often are unable to spend, for a variety of reasons, unable to spend all the money that we are awarded. So I guess the question for the board right now is in terms of, and we'll let this sink in a little bit here, but in terms of questions for Haley regarding the proposed, and this is just Haley and I a little bit looking at the numbers that gets to the proposal of 195. I don't think anybody, I don't have any sense, maybe Haley, you do, of word from Lansing about what the budget's going to look like next year. I know that's a little bit far out. Any thought from Molly or any of the people at the state level in terms of available funds for the community correction boards?
The only information I have so far is that MDOC, OCC, Office of Community Corrections, is asking for the same amount that they asked for last year, but I don't know what that award amount will look like to them.
Okay. So then back to the board. Any questions for Haley about how she came up with the numbers or why she's making the budget proposals for the next fiscal year that are all the way to the right here in terms of what our fiscal year 2022 budget proposal would look like?
I have a quick question, Haley. So is there any thought to, I know part of the reason that the MRT, the cognitive MRT line got deleted is because we really just don't have a provider to do that. I can't see him on my screen, but I'm assuming since Judge Berger said something that maybe Ed Quint is on here. Has Ed given any thought to dipping the toes into those waters or anything? Because I think, you know, like when you shared your screen with the criminogenic needs and risk profile, you know, on both of those for PVs and for regular, criminal personality and cognitive behavioral, we're in the top 4 for both of those. And, you know, when we're writing the PSIs and we see those needs, generally we will recommend CBT or MRT treatment programming to try to address those needs. But not having that now, we're kind of, you know, in a hole of having nothing to do to try to address those. And clearly, you know, it is a significant need for our Berrien population. So is there any thought to seeing if we can put the feelers out, if anybody would be interested in a contract, kind of like Ed has, or Ed or anybody else?
Yeah, and like you said, that was largely, you know, the decision the board made to remove MRT was largely based on the lack of utilization. But I know COVID probably had an impact on that too. And I would also add that the Second Chance Act funding that Connexus did receive, they did actually start an MRT program with that, but I know that doesn't cover every single person that we would be able to serve as well. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a discussion that the board should have.
Unfortunately, with the Second Chance, it's been super helpful and it's been really good. The only problem is that we can't put anybody under the age of 25 in it. And as we all know, our like 18, 19 to 24s comprise a really big part of our population. And especially when they're still kind of forming, you know, senses of moral compass and whatnot. So that's kind of been a bummer there that we can't utilize that for anybody under 25.
And historically, too, just to pipe in, I think on the provider, KPEP was always willing to provide. I think the reason for removal, from what I recall, was that it was just underutilized. Folks weren't utilizing it as much as the judges weren't ordering it, or if they were ordering it, they were receiving that service through their KPEP stay. And so there was an issue with, obviously, we can't double bill for that. So that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robin, but I think there are still MRT trained staff at KPEP.
That is correct. We still have 2 staff that are MRT certified. We just have not been able to return to in-person groups due to outpatient services not, you know, being in person. And MRT is not something that would be productive over Zoom because of the book work and the need to present in front of others. It would be very difficult. We only had 2 regularly attending, which was a problem as well.
Yeah, I guess so, but I guess from a standpoint of, you know, we would obviously need to do a new, because it would be, I guess, a new service again. We would need to put it out for bid, but at least for the sense of for the board, there is a provider able to at least submit a bid on that if interested because of their training ability. And if, you know, another provider like Ed you mentioned would want to get trained in MRT and do that, that I'm sure would be an option as well. It's just it was an underutilization component previously, was the reason for removing, kind of similarly to how we ended up getting rid of Courage to Change in the jail. It just wasn't getting utilized.
I'm not like bent on it. I just kind of wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Amber, and Carrie and Ms. Sherrick as well. You know, we've dealt with certain things being ordered, you know, not ordered by the judges downstairs. We've spoken to them. You know, the judges have certainly the discretion to order what they think is appropriate on a case-by-case basis as they do. I think the good thing, and I agree, and I agree that the MRT program, you know, would fit a lot of the folks that we have. The good news is, I guess, the amount of money that previously has been budgeted that way isn't so high. And we've always, in my experience, had some flexibility with moving money around with board approval and the permission of the state. So, you know, without needing perhaps to include that as a specific budget item, just in terms of what we're looking at now, I think keeping that at the top of the list, should we have some resources later this year or next year direction that we could move to that, I think that would be money well spent. So thanks for that, bringing that up, Amber. Anybody else on any of the budget questions, just as we're discussing this as it relates to what Haley's going to be putting together, finalizing, I guess I should say, it's already put together, finalizing and then bringing back to the board in April. Okay, hearing nothing, then I guess what I'll suggest is take a look at the numbers, you know, between now and then when we come back in April, that'll be when we'll be seeking board approval for the proposal, and we'll move forward at that time. Anything else right now as it relates to budget issues or any general questions for Haley at this point? Okay, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is a little bit of a giveaway. I have tendered my resignation as chairman of the board. That does not mean I don't plan to and hope to continue as a member of the board going forward. I didn't look at the dates. I couldn't even tell you how long I've been chair of this. I know Judge Bruce, when he was the chief judge, asked me to enter this world a little bit of the CCAB, which was a learning experience for me. I can tell you during the time that I have been the chair, it's been very educational for me. It's been an interesting period of time for the CCAB because we went through, as many of you old timers will know, you went through a period of time where Heather left as our case manager. We were without without our program manager. We were without a program manager for a period of time before Haley was brought on board. And of course, Haley has other responsibilities. And as I think everybody knows, Haley does an excellent job in terms of organizing this and kind of keeping this all on track. But then, of course, after Haley was here, I don't know how long Haley was here, a year or so, I'm going to guess. And then COVID happened, and then 2020 went along with that, and that certainly changed everything again. So it's not exactly been smooth sailing during the time that I've been the chair. That doesn't have anything to do with the reason that I've resigned as the chair of this, though. But it has been educational for me. And as I said, I hope to continue to play a role going forward as the probate judge representative on the board. If you don't know, there are Judge Cotter is our district court judge, Judge Jennifer Smith is our circuit court judge, and I'm the probate judge representative on the board. So I have tendered my resignation as chair. I look at the bylaws, which is a good thing for me to do once in a while. Can't say I've done that very often. At first I thought that Judge Mayfield, as chief judge, selected the chair, because for some reason I felt that Judge Bruce selected me, but it was probably a nomination and a vote of the board at that time too. I just don't recall that. The bylaws indicate that upon the resignation of the chair, that the vice chair assumes responsibilities for the completion of the term. I don't know when that term is, very honestly. I know Sheriff Bailey is the vice chair. What I thought, and really what I intended to do, was to, after consulting with Judge Smith, nominate Judge Jennifer Smith to be the next chair. Judge Smith, of course, serves at this time in the family division as well, but everybody knows that she was the chief assistant in the prosecutor's office for an extremely long time. She's obviously well known and well respected in the criminal world as well. So it was my thought that Jennifer would be a logical person to assume the chair responsibilities here. And I would like to nominate her, but I don't want to cross up the bylaws here. And until I read these this morning, Sheriff Bailey, I didn't see that you were really next in line here. So I neglected to give you a call, but I didn't think that you were going to be too upset if we
I second Judge Smith.
Okay. Therefore, the nomination is made and seconded by the vice chair. So there you go. Anybody else would like to be, there's not any rule that I know that it has to be a judge or the sheriff who's in one of the two leadership roles here. If anybody else would like to be considered as the chair, I certainly think that would be fair, and we'll certainly bring that to the board for that. But is anybody else like to nominate themselves or anybody else as the chair of the Berrien County CCAB? Bunch of chickens. Okay, then officially I have nominated Judge Jennifer Smith to be the chair. It's been seconded by Sheriff Paul Bailey. All those in favor of Judge Smith assuming effective immediately the chair of this board, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Congratulations, Judge Smith. Judge Smith will assume her responsibilities as chair at the April 21st meeting. And Haley, is there anything else we need to cover at this time?
Judge, I would just let you know that I sit on the board for the state board appointed by the governor to represent all the sheriffs. So I'm on the state board that goes over all the budgets.
Right. That's probably why you ended up in the spot that you're in, Sheriff Bailey, because you know more about this than I do.
No, Haley knows most of it.
Well, Haley does. And I know Judge Smith will enjoy working with Haley as I have. So I'll still be on the board. And Haley, I didn't hear you indicate there's anything else we need to cover at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct. Nothing else for me.
All right, then is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait, actually, I'm sorry. We forgot to look at the public comments in case there are
Oh, I always forget that. Braden?
I was taking a look. I think there was two watchers, and one was my cell phone and one was my laptop. So I don't think there's any comments or anybody watching.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll support.
All right, thanks, Chief Unruh.